Alright, good evening everyone. Welcome to part... Oh god, what? We're on like 130 or something. But I really don't know the part number anymore of End of Dragons Daily. I'm going to do a Q&A style episode today. So a bunch of thoughts, feedback, ideas you guys have about the expansion. We're going to have a back and forth and think about it. It's the first Q&A style one that I've done in like ages. There's been so much elite spec talk basically and bringing Boots on as a guest that most episodes, like trailers, most episodes haven't done this for ages. I had a quick scan on the channel for the last one we did so that I could actually get questions from you guys to answer. You're going to see on screen in a second. And I swear, I found one from 2 months ago. Has it been 2 months already? I mean, Jesus Christ. So these are old, and I really do mean it. I say this over and over again, but I really do mean it. If you have any thoughts of questions and ideas, put them in the comments here. So we got some newer ones. Who knows what's on people's mind at this point? Do we still want to talk about fishing or skiffs? I mean, we're in the midst of so much elite specialization stuff, but I don't think we've done a Q&A episode since even the Xingje stream either. So maybe there's some thoughts there. We obviously have the Echo Valley Forest coming up. So yeah, maybe I'll highlight an actual topic as well. But yeah, a bit of a hodgepodge of questions. We'll roll in a second. I just want to tell you guys about two other things that are going on. First of all, I mentioned this at the end of yesterday's video. There's a screenshot contest going on. Look at on screen right here with Spud. There's over 1,000 gold you can win in-game as a part of this screenshot contest. It's Halloween themed. You guys can pause the video to read the details if you like there, or just look in the description, the Discord link, go and join on in, and hopefully that'll be a fun time. The other thing that happened today, I did it this morning, is I made a special podcast, about a 15-minute episode, exclusive on Patreon. And so there's a bit of an update going on with that. It talks a bit about my living situation, how I sort of gutted my room and I've got a new desk. If the microphone sounds different today, it's just because the echo is different, because I've got a much bigger and better desk now. And basically just some thoughts about some stuff that I've done based on the Spectre animation showcase, which if you guys caught that, it was crashing constantly. And I really want to like make some changes. I want to be able to make artier and cooler videos, and I feel like Sony Vegas has been letting me down. So I actually made kind of a controversial move on Patreon, but that relit the fire, and I've got some ideas there. There'll be a super Q&A going up. So if you guys want that extra video, there'll be a link to that in the description as well. Don't misjudge what I'm doing right now. I'm not trying to just shill my Patreon. You'll notice I haven't talked about it for months now. I want to talk about it more when I feel like I've done a lot of good work and I sort of deserve to talk about it. This is literally just so that you guys know there is an update. Okay, so onto the questions. First of all, with a funny one, this is from Viper07 2 months ago. Now, I swear to you guys, I'm not lying to you when I say I read all the YouTube comments. Obviously, sometimes things slip through the cracks, because there are a lot of them. I swear to God, though, the first thing I saw was this from Viper07. Came across something interesting that could allude to a future elite spec. Right-clicking on the F4 key on an engineer pops up a rename pet dialogue. Perhaps it's a bug from copy-pasting, but maybe it's something unintentionally leaked from the Engineer Elite spec, something like a Golemancer. I missed this. I guess there'd been a lot of discussion about this on the internet, but as you guys know, I was in the dark on this until, what, about a week ago? Right on the cusp of the most recent beta. And that's totally what it was, so there you go. That was a real thing people have seen at least 2 months ago. It's funny as well, I never mentioned this in any of my review of the beta and stuff, but one thing about that was that whole system was bugged anyway, right? When you renamed your pet, when the mech went away and came back, the name was gone. So it's funny that this bug, you know, snuck in all that time ago, and the devs really don't have that whole system ironed out anyway, but there you have it. Alright, first real question. This is from Shademare100. Who says, current events aren't anywhere in... So, okay, one big thing that was going on in the previous Q&A, it was 2 months ago, so just to remind you all, we were talking about what Living World should look like and whether it's still like this marketable, exciting thing to players. What are we expecting after End of Dragons is out? You know, they have flatly confirmed to us that Guild Wars 2 goes on after End of Dragons. They care a huge deal about Guild Wars 2. It's the big focus. So the question is, like, what are they going to do? And this big discussion, therefore, permeates a few of the questions that are going on right now. I believe one of the commenters last time mentioned the idea of just current events between expansions, and the devs really just go all in on X-Pack experiences. Shade says, current events aren't anywhere near enough content to keep one occupied for 2 years. With other MMOs such as World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, you have the expansion release, then follow-up content. It's expected. Living World is just another name for the follow-up content. I don't see why having more Living World content, or call it what you like, would be a disaster. I'll say it again, follow-up content after an expansion release is expected. You don't want the game to devolve into a SWTOR like MMO where you had just three releases over 2 years between expansions. Well, I think you're misunderstanding the proposal there, really. Current events, likewise, just as you've argued for Living World, is another name for follow-up content. And I don't think anyone's really suggesting it would be as bare bones as current events have been. They're just saying that style of content execution at a regular interval is what the devs could do, which allows them to keep the engines firing for X packs, I suppose, and then move on. I mean, it's really weird to talk about with Guild Wars because we don't have the key piece of the puzzle in the very center of the board, which is why is it that after Path of Fire came out, the devs didn't want to immediately commit to another expansion. We know that they wanted to immediately commit to one after Heart of Thorns, and the whole way through Living World Season 3, they were building Path of Fire, and they were putting a Living World season out at once, and they demonstrated that they could do it. And that was fine. But then, after POF, quietly, behind closed doors, they clearly said no. Season 4 was meant to be it. And that's like a crazy decision, really. That's why when Season 4 ended and we had all the layoffs and then the sudden shift to the Icebreaker Saga, none of this was planned. I mean, I think that's something that people often forget when we talk about it now and when we think about after End of Dragons. It's not like ArenaNet ever planned whatever we're in to be the situation. What they had planned was cancelled behind closed doors and we just don't know. So when it comes to the idea of formulating new plans, I mean, a part of me just wants to say, why are we formulating a new plan at all? I mean, they clearly demonstrated that when they were focused on that through the Season 3 era, everything went well. And if the plan now is to return to that kind of thing, well, then why wouldn't it go well again in the future? I mean, that's my thinking, but obviously we don't have the finances and stuff. This conversation's obviously come up a lot over End of Dragons Daily, and hopefully it's not too boring to you guys, but I sort of feel like it's at the heart of the biggest issues Guild Wars has these days, so, you know, I like talking about it. Next, we got this question from Inks, who's kind of talking a bit about the format of the Q&A. It is a weird question. This might come across as odd, but I miss hearing WP, what you're doing in life and so on. Ever consider doing a pod like with Boots? I was thinking about this too, especially with the Patreon post I did earlier today, because it's this weird thing where in my old QAs, we were so much more broad with what we were talking about. More personal life stuff would slip in, but now I'm so hyper-focused on End of Dragons, End of Dragons, End of Dragons. You know, there's a bit less of it, I suppose. And the other Q&A format that I've got, may be becoming a distant memory to some of you guys, but I still remember it, and I still like the idea, is The Floor, which is specifically like a discussion platform for follow-up conversation after a big video. Like, I just did this Final Fantasy XIV versus Guild Wars video, and I could do an episode of The Floor based on that coming up. But none of it really leaves space for personal things. I don't know. You know what it is? It's because I'm not really Let's Playing very much at the moment, and it's in the Let's Plays you'd hear more of that stuff. I don't know. I'll find some space. I don't want to become too cold and dispassionate to the internet, which maybe I have been a bit over the past year. The streams are probably pretty good for a lot of personality, but I know that's long form, it's not everyone's cup of tea. Next, back to End of Dragons, we've got Shogun X, who says, personally, I'd be happy them going back to Corteria and adding new beats, like let's go to the Wizard's Tower, or let's go on an adventure with Zodja, or another return to Ore, where it started to truly be regrown. I'd like mini stories, even if they aren't voice acted, and just have the Banjo-Kazooie grunts. The last little bit of that, I don't think you're going to see in Guild Wars. It's too late in the day to, you know, have everyone suddenly speaking Simish or whatever. I think that's a brilliant idea, by the way. In my dream MMO, like, if I imagine, like, an MMO that could realistically be made by a medium-sized to small team on a budget, right? I think you would do the Banjo-Kazooie thing. You would have people going, you know, and you just imagine, and you can get a little bit of a tone in there. I think that's a great idea, but it's not going to work for Guild Wars, not Guild Wars 2, all right? Maybe it'll be a Guild Wars 3 thing. You know, maybe that's how the Commander will sound in the next game, so they can save a lot on voice acting budget for the main character. But as to the other stuff, I actually think you might be onto something there. And it's like, it's a lot like how Season 1 works, you know. Season 1 did have new maps and some dungeons and some new places to go to. But then it also had a lot of beats where we were just running around, say, Lornar's Pass. And you discover now that beneath Lornar's Pass is Scarlet's secret lair. And they kind of added a little bit of a cave. But the rest of it was kind of questing around an established map. I feel like both Season 3 and Season 4 forgot to do a lot of that stuff. And I always really loved it when it actually did appear. You know, like how, even the Icebreaker Saga has the same problem. But you know, like how at the start of the Icebreaker Saga, there's a moment where you're at the Black Citadel and you get on the helicopter. I quite like that. How, before the Jahai Bluffs came out, we actually got to spend a tiny little bit of time in Vabi. I think these moments are worth a lot, and it's not just because I play these games for an adventure and I like that idea of seeing the start of the journey as well as, you know, the exit point and where we come out, but it's because they're utilizing those basic places. You know, I really do look at that gate to the Crystal Desert next to Ebonhawk being unused for this entire era of the game, an era of the game equivalent in length between launch and POF itself. Like, half the existence of the game will exist in this space between POF and End of Dragons. That's a lot of time, and they never, ever did anything with that desert gate. That like blows my mind. I really do view that as like criminal almost. What I really think Guild Wars needs to be able to express its story better is just take its time. And this idea, yeah, I don't believe in the Banjo-Kazooie Simish thing, but the idea of just having less voice acting, more sort of meandering around in core areas, taking it easy, being confident and not worrying that you're going to lose people's attention. Actual written dialogue that the people who don't like the story can just skip through is a massive release valve. It means that they can put way more dialogue sequences and way more exploration of setting without ticking people off, because the people who don't care will skip. And I think FF14 has proved that to me in spades, and that's what I want from Tyrion more than anything else. And if that means hanging around these core areas, even in places where there aren't explicit mysteries, like you say the Wizard's Tower, I know people are going to be thinking about the Dominion of Winds. You mentioned like regrown ore, but in a way that's kind of asking them to do a new map, isn't it, to a certain degree? I don't even think you need to do stuff like that. You can literally just throw us around like Skritzberg and talk to me about how the Skrit are reacting now that Prime Mortis isn't there. Start sowing the seeds and breadcrumb the idea of a Depths of Tyria expansion that's coming in 2025, you know? Start doing that stuff, and I think it would be very, very successful. Next question, one of the things we were discussing were rewards for strikes. Well, which obviously we've just had a really nice big blog post about again, and if you watched my video about that strike post, you did hear me say I wish they talked a little bit more about rewards. Well, picking up that conversation from 2 months ago, Einolf here says, Canthan looking legendary armor? Come on! Well, at least I hope they add some of the Canthan armor from Guild Wars 1 to End of Dragons, and I'd love to have a new collection like the super rare exotics that can drop around Core Tyria, but for Cantha. I think this is a huge thing that I would love to grapple more with, and I want more details before End of Dragons comes out. I want to hear about loot in End of Dragons. Loot is so important. I don't believe they'll be doing legendary armor. It was the thing they committed to with Heart of Thorns. I feel like they still feel stung from like the, so to speak, air quotes, backlash when the original raid armor came out, and I don't know whether we'll see it again. Like, too much animation, too much art time, and so on. Even though I think personally it's a very, very powerful thing. But what about all the other loot? You know, they're giving us this idea that we're going to have Heart of Thorns style meta events that we really care about long term. So what does that mean? Are you literally going to copy paste those Heart of Thorns systems for, you know, keys and currencies and how they all fold into the final map and stuff? That was very smart with Heart of Thorns. I don't mind if they copy paste it, but they haven't told us. Are they going to be music box ultra rares like Path of Fire had? Path of Fire is pretty terrible with rewards, but one thing it did that was really good were the minis. Remember, like, the mini Awakened Abomination and the mini Janundu Worm, I think it was, the various mini Jin. They were all really rare and really expensive on the TP for a long time. That was actually a cool part of Path of Fire reward systems. The devs could talk to us so much about this, and they haven't yet, you know. The Xingji stream, I think, did it suggest like a new type of champ box? I think I remember talking about that with Boots when we covered that live. But I want more, man, right? I mean, what a perfect blog post that would be. Hopefully they've got those details nailed down, and perhaps they're not talking yet because they're not nailed down. I do have several more questions, but if you guys remember, this was supposed to be bite-sized once upon a time, so I'm going to try and keep it there. We'll get one more. It's a wall of text from Ashton C, who says, I mean, excluding the special precursor collection items like the Juggernaut's Mystic Chromatic Ooze, there are the legendary gliders that they could use from Warbringer, the legendary novelty via Verderak. He's talking about like the legendary horn music instrument. I think it'd be pretty awesome if they did more legendary cosmetic novelty pairings. They could even retroactively add things like a mini for Zaquatl, a mini for Shushudu, a gauntlet skin for Ippos, and maybe some kind of disco dance emote for the Moot. In a similar vein, if they ever implement some kind of aura or infusion addition to the wardrobe/armory, it'd be cool to have legendary effect automatically added to that as unlockables. Being able to mix and match footfalls, unsheaths, auras would be pretty nice. Yeah, and like arm effects too, I believe. I rarely see the awesome footfall from the Binding of Ippos because I'm almost always using it with legendary main hand, which isn't necessarily an issue most of the player base is necessarily running into, but still. That's a good point, actually. I didn't think about that. You don't see the offhand footsteps much because once you become a player that's made one legendary, you tend to make multiple, and people like the two-handed legendaries and people like the main-handed legendaries, so the other ones kind of get the shaft. I totally do think that These are some of the best opportunities for rewards, but it requires infrastructure. Infrastructure that End of Dragons hasn't necessarily set out to do. And when people talk about like an infusion wardrobe, I think they're either just thinking in terms of customization or they're trying to get rid of visual noise. But I see it also as a really valuable way of adding more meaningful rewards to the game. The way I think like an aura, like cosmetic section would look like is it would restrict you to maybe 1 or 2 effects, or maybe you'd add like currencies to effects, so really noisy ones like the ghostly infusion, you only get to have 1 of those because maybe it costs 5 points, or maybe you can have like 5 individual separate ones that only cost 1 point, and you know, you can mix and match in that way. I think, and then of course, yeah, legendaries would be unlocking lots of these all at once, footsteps and so on. I can really imagine that working. As for the other stuff, you know, there are some things I wish I could say would be really good for Guild Wars. Like, I think End of Dragon should have legendary mounts. Wouldn't that be amazing if you could earn like legendary mount skins? I mean, really? I think we should be able to earn legendary chairs, right? There's loads of stuff like that we could do. But then you realize you can't really recommend it. It doesn't really work because of the gem store. And the gem store has already gone as extreme, as pretty, as flashy as you can possibly imagine. And it sold some of this stuff to people for like 400 gems, 600 gems, 800 gems. And any legendary is going to really struggle fighting against that. And I don't know, it kind of kills my enthusiasm for it to a degree. It's one of those places, and I see them more and more as time goes by. I used to be pretty lukewarm about the gem store, but as time goes by, I find it's like really messed with stuff. And it's like there's these whole opportunities now that are not as exciting as they could have been, or should have been, even through the POF era. So there you have it, guys. That's a Q&A. I'm really, really looking forward to comments on any topic. Sponsor a topic if you like as well, and we can dedicate one of these videos to that as we go forwards. It'll be interesting seeing how much you guys enjoy a video like this. Now that I've done like tier lists, which people seem to quite like, and I've got, you know, mostly newsy type stuff going on all the time, I wonder whether these look boring, but I really like making these. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to check out WP2 for a bunch of VODs about the Final Fantasy journey. If you are on Patreon, there's that Patreon post there, the screenshot contest on Discord. 3 big things for you guys to check out. Thanks very much for watching, and for everyone else, I'll see you in the comments.